I'm delighted to welcome back Nikidra Battle DeBarge for another Wedgwood Coffee Break conversation. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, which as the coordinator of Wedgwood's Manasseh Project is an important month for you.
Yes.
So Wedgwood's Manasseh Project is dedicated to ending sexual exploitation and trafficking in West Michigan through education and prevention efforts, and even through specialized treatment and care. So can you explain a little bit what sexual exploitation and trafficking are and maybe how they're a little bit different?
Well, human trafficking is the big term, and then you have labor and you have sex, and it's basically someone using force, fraud, or coercion to compel someone to sell their bodies for sex or to work in harsh conditions or unpaid or underpaid conditions known as labor trafficking.
Okay.
Someone is exploiting a person when they are taking advantage of them, and trafficking is the act of doing this. So that's where you are. Like a third party is involved, where you are selling that person to someone else.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the work Wedgwood's Manasseh Project does to fight sexual exploitation and trafficking and what your role is?
Yeah, so the past 10 years, I've been in the role of project coordinator for the Manasseh Project, and we've done lots of different things, collaboration with other communities and organizations to provide education and training around what human trafficking is and what it looks like. I'm part of a lot of different coalitions, and I get to work with other people who are doing the work, and my main job is like going to schools, going to colleges, going to churches, going to businesses, and speaking at conferences and on panels. And my ultimate goal is to help people recognize what trafficking is and know that it is an issue right here in our community. That was a big issue when we first started, was helping people understand, no, it's not just in another country. It is right here in West Michigan, which is hard for people to digest because nobody wants that to be a reality that we face, and we do for many reasons. A lot of vulnerable people in our communities, and so that's my job is to recently. Well, we're in the third year of our grant with Ken ISD and with partnership for Ken ISD, in partnership with Ken ISD. It's a grant through the Office of Trafficking in Person and the Department of Health and Human Services. We were one of 8 communities to receive this grant, and the only community in Michigan to receive the grant. So I'm very excited about that. We have been able to go into schools and educate school staff, not just teachers, but social workers, SROs, which are their security personnel, and educate them on what trafficking is, and also educate educators or social workers or counselors on how to educate students. And it's a human trafficking prevention education grant. And so we also get to go into the classrooms and walk alongside the educators to help them to train. I'm considered the lead trainer, but also a coach. And so I'm just a resource really to help them to navigate the curriculum, any questions they have, if they need someone to support them when they're doing the training. If they have questions, I'm kind of helping with that type of thing. So that's one of the dreams that I had is to be, I was already going into the schools, but it was more of a backdoor, like someone would see me at a training and like, hey, can you come to my classroom? But this way, we're able to go into the district. And so we are making an even bigger impact in the school districts, which is where most of our vulnerable kids are. So yeah, that's what I do.
That's awesome. And I love that this grant is not just like a one-time presentation, like you're helping set the school up for long-term sustainable education and prevention, which is really awesome.
Yeah, grants are great, but grants end, and so having sustainability and equipping them with the ability to be able to recognize what trafficking is, and because kids are at school that's where they spend most of their day. They need safe people to be able to connect to if they are experiencing any of that. And the other part of the grant is that we were able to develop a human trafficking school safety protocol, which did not exist, and so they have information and resources so that they know if this is happening, what do I do to manage that? Who do I connect to? So I think that has been a really critical part of the work that we've done with the grant.
Yeah, I mean, because once you're aware of something, you need to know what to do with that.
Exactly.
And so giving schools the resources to know what their next steps are in this situation is really empowering.
Yeah.
So because January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, what do you want to make sure people know about the realities of trafficking right here in West Michigan?
Well, yes, January is Trafficking Awareness Month, but one of the main things that I want people to know, that is a month that we've set aside to acknowledge it, but this happens every day. And so I don't want it to just be like, oh, it's January, so this is the time to think about it. I think it's important to set aside specific times to do that because we don't typically recognize things until it's like this is this big, big space for it. But I just want people to know that, first of all, trafficking is a real thing. It's not the Taken movie that you've seen, and that there are a lot of myths that are going around, and you want to be careful about the information that you have that you're spreading. We want kids to understand that social media and technology is great, but there are also downsides to that. And we really can't get in front of the internet. So what we can do is to help them to build skills on how to navigate technology well and how to be safe. And when you're meeting people, when things don't feel right, one of the things that we've really been talking about is listening to your inner voice, that gut feeling. When something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Learning that voice and what it sounds like and what it feels like, so that they can recognize it for themselves. And just, I don't want to hyperbolize the issue. I don't want people to be afraid. I don't want people to be scared. I want people to know that this is an issue and do your best to avoid it if possible. And I think for adults is to maintain positive, healthy relationships with our kids so that they're not looking for those relationships online, but they already have these meaningful relationships and they have their basic needs met so that they don't have to look for that in other places. And I think that's huge. And really the crux of us removing this issue is building healthy relationships and helping kids recognize the difference between what's healthy and what's not healthy. So yeah, there's a lot that I would want people to know. I could talk about human trafficking for days, because it's not just human trafficking. It's healthy relationships, it's vulnerabilities, it's, like I said, that inner voice, connections, resources. It's so many levels to it that we just need to be able to delve into all those small pieces in order to understand the big issue, some of the systemic issues that we have in our communities that we have to remove, and just help people to navigate life as safe as possible.
And looking out for one another so we can all do that together.
And talking to each other in our circles, that's where we have the best impact. If we're all talking within our circles about the issues that we are facing, then we'll do a good job at helping people to be safe.
So what are some of the signs of trafficking that people should be aware of or looking for as they're looking out for the people in their circles?
Sometimes there aren't signs. Sometimes you don't know that someone is experiencing trafficking or unless you have a relationship with them. That goes back to that relationship. You might traffickers are very what word do I need to use? They know how to teach their victims how to act, in certain situations. But, you might notice that they're now, having newer clothes, they are dressing different, they're acting different, they're isolating, they're not hanging around the same people that they used to. Now they have a maybe older, controlling relationship with someone. They may be going out of town a lot. They may be tired all the time. When they come to school, they may be missing school a lot. they may be very anxious all the time and on a time schedule. Those are things that you might notice, but you won't notice them if you don't know that person. And so there are those, or even with labor trafficking, you might notice that someone may be living and working in their same space, that they're working long hours and maybe not getting paid. Usually if something feels too good to be true, it probably is. And so the stories that you hear when you talk to people, some red flags should come up if some things don't seem right or feel right. And not that sometimes our gut can be wrong. I will say that because of our experiences, we might lean to one side or the other, but usually our gut is pretty on point. And lean into that. And so ask questions. So, your gut is the first thing, but then ask questions around what your gut is telling you so that you don't make false accusations or, assume that certain things are happening that are not actually happening. But for the most part, your gut will tell you that something at least doesn't seem or feel right.
So if we encounter someone that we are concerned might be in a trafficking situation, or and if an individual has confided in us that they are in an exploitive relationship, what do we do?
Well, first have a conversation with that person. Try to find out what's going on with them. And I go back to that. It's hard to just talk to somebody and expect for them to tell you things if you don't know them. If there are certain things that you're noticing about them that is different, you can ask questions about that. Like, I've been noticing that, this has been going on, or I haven't been seeing you around, or, asking certain questions. If you are seeing bruises or marks on them, those are ways to start conversations about things that you've noticed. But also, if it's an immediate situation, call the police. There's also the human trafficking tip line that you can call if you just have questions, or if it's not so immediate, where you can call them and say, "Hey, I'm concerned about someone. What do you think?" It can be anonymous. You don't have to tell them who you are. They may ask you where you are, just so that they can get someone to be able to do some investigation around that. But that's another resource. I tell kids to find out who a trusted adult is in their lives, so that they can talk to them if they are experiencing, something like that. But typically, like I said, if it's an emergent situation, call the police. That's the best way to do that. But if it's something that you're not sure of, you can call Human Trafficking Tip Line. You can call me at Wedgwood. There are other organizations that are also willing to be a resource as well.
That's great. And it's nice that, West Michigan has some resources to connect to learn more on what to be looking for and how to handle situations ahead of time, so that if you were to find yourself in a situation where someone needs help, you already have a little bit of that knowledge in your back pocket.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can people learn more about the realities of trafficking, how to combat it, and get connected to resources?
Well, my job is to train, so they can definitely call Wedgwood's Manasseh Project. ManassehProject.org has information and resources on there. There are other organizations as well who would be happy to connect people to the resources that they need. A lot of times, their issue is not, they are maybe being trafficked, or you might know someone, but there were other issues that we can, that could be beneficial for them to get support, like maybe homelessness, or they may need mental health therapy, or they may need food. They may need to be connected to medical support, or so there's a lot of different resources that our community is pretty rich in, that we can connect them to. So it may not specifically be human trafficking, but there may be some other things that they may need information. Could be teen dating violence. That's something that we're connecting with Safe Haven on, is doing trainings around teen dating violence, intimate partner date violence, and human trafficking in the intersections there. So they can. There are modules online that they can connect to, but I would of course say call us.
Yes.
At the Manasseh Project.
I'll be sure to include some links and some phone numbers in our episode description too, so people can get connected quickly.
Okay.
I'm sure it can feel like fighting human trafficking feels like an endless uphill battle. What gives you hope and keeps you passionate about your work, and how have you seen God moving and working through what you do?
I think God gave me a gift to love people, and in loving people, I'm able to share things that I think could help them love others, you know, and so I think my passion comes from being able to help people and be a servant as God has called me to be. And I think also when I see people, prevention runs through my veins. And so I'm like, if I can get in front of an issue, if I can help someone understand it on the front end, I don't have to worry about it on the back end as much. And so I get to work with people, I get to educate people, I get to see the light come on for people in regards to trafficking or healthy relationships or any of that, all of those things. So I think that's where my passion, every time I think I'm done, I get another opportunity to share with other people. And so I think seeing it as a gift has also made it not feel like a job. And it's felt natural for me to be able to connect with people and to give them hope. And so that's what makes me passionate, and that's what keeps me going.
I love that you think about what you do as an act of love for the people around you. That's so beautiful, Nikita.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for all you do. Here at Wedgwood, your advocacy for kids and families within West Michigan community is incredible. And as always, it is a joy to chat with you.
Joy to chat with you as well.